Okay, let's add and subtract and perform operations on irrational numbers, radical numbers. So, quick reminder, you can only add and subtract when things are alike. When you add or subtract them, they stay alike. Root 18 and root 50 are not alike. So therefore, quick reminder on how to simplify radicals. Sometimes it works, sometimes it won't. Square root of 18 is the square root of 9 times 2. Since we know the square root of 9, it can be moved out front. Plus, square root of 50, 50 is 25 times 2. Since we know the square root of 25, it can be brought out front. Now, notice something. 3 root 2s, 5 root 2s. They're alike. They're both root 2s. So we're simply going to add the numbers out front. Those coefficients, that tells us how many there are. There's 3 root 2s, there's 5 root 2s, so there's a total of 8 root 2s. Now we can add them. Next up, again, we're just simplifying everything. Square root of 63, that's the square root of 9 times 7, which is 3 root 7. Plus the square root of 8, 8 is 4 times 2, so that's going to be, we know the square root of 4, so that's 2 root 2. Plus the square root of 28. The square root of 28 would be 4 times 7. Since we know the square root of 4, we can move it out front. And then minus the square root of 50, that's the square root of 25 times 2. We did it in the last problem. We know the square root of 25, it can be moved out front. Therefore, look at all the things that are alike now. 3 root 7s and 2 root 7s can be combined to give you 5 root 7s. 2 root 2s minus 5 root 2s can be combined and give you negative 3 root 2s. That's your final answer. You cannot combine root 7s with root 2s. Same way you cannot combine x's with y's. Anytime there's minus in front of parentheses, remember that distributes to both. So let's simplify these. 72 would be 36 times 2, which would be 6 root 2s. Minus the square root of 3 will not break down. So if you need to put the 1 out front, just to remind you, that is a 1 root 3. Square root of 8 would be the square root of 4 times 2. We know the square root of 4 can be brought out front. Now remember, that minus goes with both of these, so that's going to be minus 2 root 2s. Square root of 27 is 9 times 3. We know the square root of 9. It can be brought out front, and it will also get a negative sign from this, so that'd be negative 3 root 3s. Combine the things that are alike. 6 root 2s minus 2 root 2s is a total of 4 root 2s. Negative 1 root 3s, negative 3 root 3s would be negative 4 root 3s. Final answer. Now, even though we can only add and subtract when things are alike, we can multiply and divide anytime. And we like these because we're simply going to multiply and divide the things that are alike. The 2 times the 3 gives you 6. The root times the root gives you root 35. And simplify it if you can. Same thing here. The 3 and 12 are alike. So what we're going to do, I say divide, but you can actually treat it like a fraction. Just reduce it. That's 1/4. Root 10 and root 5 are also alike. So therefore, divide those. That gives you a root 2. So I'm going to write that as root 2 over 4. Final answer. 15 and 3 are alike. 15 divided by 3 gives you 5. Root 10 and root 2. So since the root 10 is on bottom, we're going to treat this more like a simplifying. We're going to get root 1 and root 5. Now, the root 1 we know is just 1, so we don't have to put it. But 5 over root 5, we have a rule with radicals. We cannot leave a radical on bottom. So we're going to do what's called rationalizing. Probably seen this in previous courses. In order to get a radical off bottom, we're going to multiply top and bottom by that radical. Now, these are not alike, so they won't combine. So we're going to leave that as 5 root 5 on top. A root 5 times root 5 on bottom is root 25 or just plain 5. Now we got another step. Again, the things that are alike can be combined. 5 and 5 actually cancel each other out and leaves me a final answer of just root 5. If you have, again, always be leery of plus and minus signs. Anytime you're dividing by a 3 root 6 minus 2, you cannot just pair these up and pair these up. It's not legal, okay? Got to treat things differently when we have plus and minus signs. So anytime you're dividing by a binomial, what we're going to do is multiply top and bottom by what's called the conjugate. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by 3 root 6 plus 2. And 3 root 6 plus 2. Perfectly legal because we're multiplying top and bottom by the exact same thing. On top, 9 root 6 times 3 root 6. Again, reminder, just multiply the things that are alike. Will be 27 times the square root of 36, which is actually just 6. 9 root 6 times 2, only multiply the things that are alike. 9 times 2 is 18. Leave the root 6 alone. We're done with 9 root 6. 5 times 3 root 6 would actually be 15. Leave the root 6 alone. And then 5 times 2 is 10. I'm going to go ahead and clean up that 27 times 6, which is 162, and put that answer right there. Over. Now, since we're dealing with conjugates, we don't have to multiply everything. We only have to multiply first times first. And again, multiply the things that are alike. 3 times 3 is 9. Root 6 times root 6 is actually root 36, or just plain 6. So that's 9 times 6, or just 54. And notice what just happened. That radical went away. We don't, again, since it's conjugates, we don't have to multiply everything. We're just multiplying now negative 2 times positive 2, which is negative 4. And again, notice that bottom cleaned up nicely. So on top, combine like terms, 172. 18 root 6, 15 root 6 is 33 root 6. All over 54 minus 4, which is 50. You can leave your answer like that, or since, again, you have that plus sign, if you would like to split it, you can split it and reduce it. I'll leave that up to you. You could actually reduce that fraction, and you could leave your answer like that. So I'm going to skip the next one that looks like that and go to number 9. Negative 5 root 5 to the second power. Since there's no plus or minus signs, we can simply just raise both of these to the second power. Negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. Root 5 times root 5 is root 25, or just 5. So final answer, 125. Plus signs and minus signs make things a little bit more difficult. In order to square this, you can't just square each piece. So we've got to multiply 2 minus 3 root 2 times 2 minus 3 root 2. We've got to FOIL this out. 2 times both of these. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times negative 3 root 2. Only multiply the things that are similar. That's negative 6. Leave the root 2 alone. Done with that. Negative 3 root 2, hey, that's the same thing. Negative 6 root 2. Then we got to do negative 3 root 2 times negative 3 root 2. Multiply the things that are alike. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Root 2 times root 2 is actually a 2. So if you'd like to change that to 18, 9 times 2, which is 18, that's fine. Combine like terms. Now you can add and subtract only things that are alike. 4 and 18 is 22. Negative 6 root 2 is negative 6 root 2s. When you add or subtract, they stay alike. That's going to be negative 12 root 2s.